thinking of these dog stories. This is not a dog story, but it reminds me of my dog stories because it's about my brother Randy. Now, I've told you before, Randy and I are both bipolar. We inherited that from our dad, and there's always been a real jealousy on Randy's part. I'm not jealous. I'm the oldest child. I'm cool. There's nothing to be jealous about with Randy. And it started years and years ago. I've been accused, now I'm not going to confirm or deny this story, but my mom tells it, that we lived in Michigan. We were in Romney country for quite a while there while I was growing up. And Randy, my mom says, was a really naughty baby. He cried a lot. And I thought, well, I'm the good son, and he's obviously genetically inferior. So he was crying and crying all the years that he was growing up as a baby, a new baby. And one day my mom comes in to the room where he's crying. And I was little, because there's only like 2 or 3 years difference between Randy and I. Now mentally, there's hundreds of points, but chronologically is 1 or 2 years. And so my mom finds me under the crib. I had stolen Randy's bottle, and I was sucking it dry, which I did a lot. And then when she wasn't there, I'd put it back up in his crib, and Mom would go, well, the baby's eating well. I don't know why he's crying. I should have been in jail years ago. That was child abuse. So anyway, I can't think of how many times I abused him. The numbers are not that big. But anyway, we did have a 2-story house in Midland, Michigan. That's where my mom says she met George Romney, Mitt Romney's father. And I had this idea about parachutes, and I thought, if you take a handkerchief and you tie all 4 edges of it, and then tie it to the back of a person, you could push them out a 2nd-story window, and the parachute would open, and the person would land gently on the ground. Well, Randy, again, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, so he volunteered, kind of like a jet experiment flyer, and that's what he was. When I went downstairs, because I didn't want to be accused of pushing him out the window, I wanted to be there when he landed. Well, I was there when he landed, and the chute never opened. I say to this day, a handkerchief could have stopped a 70-pound boy, but it didn't. And he hit the ground and bounced, I don't know, 7 or 8 times. And I started running the house. I didn't want my parents to see that I had anything to do with this. So anyway, the story I wanted to get to, we lived in Sanford, Michigan, and it was kind of out in the country. And we had a well. You pump the water. And anyway, it was a gravel road. Well, one day, we rode in the back seat. There was me, Randy, and Debbie, my sister in those days. And, the cars out of the 40s had those suicide doors on them. Now, if you don't know what a suicide door is, you're way too young. That's the door that when you open it up, the wind catches it. It hinges from the other side, and it'll yank your ass right out of that car if it's moving. I don't know if Ralph Nader approved that kind of safety on a door or not. But anyway, we're driving along the dirt road, and we're going into town. And suddenly, Randy, the idiot, he starts fooling with the doorknob. Well, I'm smart enough to go, well, I'm not fooling with the doorknob. That sucker, like a wind tunnel, it'll pull you out of here if it opens. Well, sure enough, it opened. And sure enough, it pulled his ass right out of the car. Now here he is. I don't know if he was 5 or 7 or somewhere in there. And all I could see out the back window was this kid in the gravel. Well, I don't like to call 911 unless it's a real emergency. I didn't think in those days a child falling out of the car like Randy, was an emergency. I thought it might have been a blessing from the Lord. I used to believe in the Lord, and I thought maybe that was a blessing. So he gets up on the gravel, and now he can't run that fast, but man, it's the fastest I ever saw him run after our car, because, I don't know, maybe he didn't want to walk. I don't know what his motivation was, but pretty soon there was blood coming out of his head. Now, this is a head injury that maybe accounts for his behavior today. I don't know. But he's bleeding, and he's waving, trying to get my dad's attention to stop the car and pick him back up. Well, I'm knees up on the back seat, looking out the back window. I thought he was waving at me and going, "Hi, how are you doing?" That's what I told my dad. And I go, "Hi, Randy. How are you doing? Run a little faster." Well, we went probably, I don't know, maybe a half a mile. And I don't know, the moral fiber, which was just developing in me in those days, it wasn't well developed. So I tapped my dad on the shoulder. He says, "Yes, what is it? What is it?" Because he's always having to look over the back because of the kids, which I do to this day. And I said, "Dad," I said, "Randy fell out of the car." And he said, "What? What did you say?" I said, "Dad, Randy fell out of the car." He never even looked back. He beat me over the seat. "You son of a bitch. Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Because I don't like the kid." And he's beating me and he slams on the brake and he makes a U-turn. And he goes back, and here's Randy. He only had one damn gravel in his head. I mean, this was not a serious injury, because it didn't happen to me. So he picks Randy up, all bloody, and Randy gets in and looks at me, and I go, hey, I told you not to fool with the door handle. So anyway, that's my Randy story, and it continues to this day. I'll do it on another video, but I just want you to know, if your brother or your father falls out of the car, you make sure you say something. Now, I'll put an end on this, a P.S. When my dad was a baby, I mean really baby, a babe in arms, they were driving along. My great-grandfather, or my grandfather, Jesse, was driving, and Dwayne, my father, in a blanket, fell out of the car. Now, this may have been his head injury too, I don't know. But anyway, he bounced on the ground, and the blanket, I guess, protected him to a certain extent. And a nice, and back in these days, there were a lot of racial tensions. A nice black couple stopped and picked up my dad, and then hurried forward to catch my mom driving, I guess, or my grandfather driving, and say, "Hey, your baby fell out of the car." Well, maybe Jesse knew Dwayne. He didn't want him back. I've always said to my kid, "Dad, what if we get kidnapped?" And I said, "Hey, don't worry. Anyone that kidnaps you, once they get to know you, they're going to bring you back." "Really?" "Yeah, they will." So anyway, that's my Randy story and my dad's story. We all fall out of the car. Oh, you know what? Bipolar mind. When I was in Orem, Utah, I had my daughter Michelle with me, and I had a Studebaker truck. Again, you're all so young, you don't know what a Studebaker is. It's not a croissant. It's a car, and it looked like a croissant. It looked like a lemon sucking a DeSoto. But anyway, I'm driving down the main street of Orem, State Street. In those days, we didn't have seat belts. And little Michelle she was only, well, she was walking, so she must have been 3, maybe 4. And she was standing beside me in the truck, in the middle. And again, we didn't have car seats. It didn't occur to us to be safe with our kids. Well, I made a quick U-turn right there on State Street, and I'll be damned, the Studebaker truck door opened right up. Well, I never saw Michelle from that point forward. She just launched right out of the truck. And I go, I don't think this is good. I think when I go home to see your mother, mothers don't like it when you say, I lost the baby, or the baby got run over. So I said, for my own safety and my own life, I'm going to try to rescue that baby. Well, she went right out on State Street, which is a busy street in Orem, Utah, and I didn't even stop the truck. I just jumped out of the truck, and it went over in the ditch and stopped. And Jesus was at the wheel, if you know what I mean. And I scooped Michelle up, that's my oldest child, off of the pavement and saved her life because I had endangered her life. So we were even. She didn't owe me anything. I didn't owe her anything. And she looked at me like a 4-year-old there and said, what do you got, shit for brains? Why don't you signal and slow down for a U-turn? And God, why don't you buy a truck that the door doesn't come open on? So anyway, there's my Michelle story. I saved her life. So anyway, Randy, I didn't try to save his life. I thought he could run to Detroit. It was only 150 miles. That's not far for a 7 or 8-year-old, and he was running good from what I could see. Thanks.